That's when I decided it was time to move. I listed my house, quickly found eager buyers, paid off every legitimate fee, got my HOA clearance, and scheduled closing. Everything was perfectly in place, or so I thought. 5 days before closing, chaos erupted. The permit office called to say my moving permit had been revoked due to unresolved HOA concerns. When I followed up, they explained that Karen had filed a complaint about potential property damage from the moving truck. As if that wasn't enough, my realtor called shortly after. Karen had reached out directly to the buyers, warning them about undisclosed violations and strongly hinting they should reconsider. The next morning, a notice was taped to my front door, claiming I owed $3,000 in back community maintenance fees that had never been mentioned before. The letter threatened a lien on my property if payment wasn't received within 48 hours. My clear title and perfect credit were suddenly under siege. At the next HOA meeting, held in the community center that always smelled like burnt coffee and defeat, I confronted Karen directly. She sat at the head of the table, flanked by her loyal board members who nodded along like bobbleheads. When I questioned the surprise fees and revoked permit, Karen flashed that icy smile. "The HOA has the authority to protect property values," she said with fake sympathy. "We've uncovered several unreported violations and potential damages during your time here. We are fully within our rights to freeze your escrow until these issues are resolved. It's all perfectly legal." Most of the board members avoided eye contact. Tom from Maple Street looked especially uncomfortable, shooting me a quick, apologetic glance before staring back at his paperwork. Something was seriously wrong. I didn't sleep that night. Karen's smug grin haunted me as I tossed and turned. By 3 a.m., I gave up and cracked open my laptop, diving into the HOA's public records. What I found made my stomach drop and then boil with rage. Karen had been systematically inflating fines and fabricating fees for multiple residents. Payment dates were mysteriously altered in the system, creating false late charges. She'd filed unauthorized liens against at least 6 properties in the past year, all homeowners who were either selling or had challenged her. Tom, for instance, had been slapped with a $2,000 landscaping violation after voting against Karen's proposal for a pointless boulder installation. Sarah Chan had been fined for architectural violations after daring to question the HOA's budget. It was a pattern of retaliation, clear as day. Karen was exploiting her power for personal gain. By sunrise, I had compiled a thick binder of evidence: screenshots of altered records, payment receipts, timelines of retaliation, and statements from neighbors. My next call was to Mitchell Graves, a real estate attorney who specialized in HOA disputes. After reviewing my evidence, he let out a long whistle. Oh, the morning sun shimmered off the moving truck's windshield as it rumbled quietly at the curb, its engine purring in sync with my pounding heart. I stood on my front lawn, clipboard in hand, ticking off the final items on my moving checklist when the sharp screech of tires shattered the calm. A silver SUV swerved recklessly into my driveway, slamming to a halt and blocking the moving truck entirely. Out stepped Karen, our HOA president, wearing her usual power suit now slightly wrinkled, probably from a frantic morning scramble. Her face was already contorted into that all-too-familiar scowl of self-righteous fury. She stormed toward me, her heels clicking ominously against the concrete like a metronome of doom. "You're not going anywhere," she barked, arms crossed tight against her chest, forming a human blockade. "Not until you settle your outstanding dues to this community." I smiled, reaching calmly into my jacket pocket and pulling out a thick manila envelope I prepared precisely for this moment. It felt heavy in my hand, months of research and planning condensed into paper. "Actually, Karen," I said, keeping my voice steady and cool, "I've got something for you." Her smug grin faltered as she reluctantly reached for the envelope, her perfectly polished nails catching the morning light. As she tore it open, I watched her confidence melt away. Her expression shifted from defiant to stunned, the color draining from her face as her eyes scanned the legal documents inside. After 3 long years living in Willowbrook Estates, I'd finally had enough of Karen Mitchell's tyrannical rule. She'd transformed what should have been a peaceful neighborhood into her personal fiefdom, wielding the HOA rulebook like a sword against anyone who crossed her. My first offense? Painting my front door navy blue instead of the HOA-approved midnight blue. The difference was barely visible to anyone, except Karen's laser vision. That harmless decision earned me a $200 fine and a stern letter about protecting community values. And that was just the beginning. Over the years, she fined me for grass that was exactly 2 inches too tall, a mailbox leaning 3 degrees off plumb, and for keeping my Christmas lights up until January 2nd instead of December 31st. Every notice ended with her signature passive-aggressive flourish. For the good of our community. Her random inspections were even worse. She'd show up, unannounced, measuring tape in hand, snapping photos of my property from every angle. Once, she even pulled out a color wheel to confirm that my shutters matched the approved shade. Neighbors whispered that Karen kept detailed files on every household, violation records, photos, even notes about when people came and went. But the final straw came when she fined me $500 for excessive dandelion growth in my backyard. Dandelions barely visible from the street. "She's toast," he said. "We've got everything we need to bury her." Over the next 2 days, we built a rock-solid case. Mitchell drafted a cease and desist order, a formal complaint to the state real estate board, and a civil lawsuit for damages. Moving day arrived, the air heavy with summer heat and tension. The moving crew had loaded most of my stuff when, right on cue, Karen's SUV came screeching into my driveway, blocking the truck. She jumped out, phone in hand, already dialing. A crowd of curious neighbors had gathered, sensing the drama. Mrs. Patterson from 2 doors down even brought a lawn chair. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting," Karen declared, brandishing her phone. "You're not leaving until we resolve your outstanding obligations. The board will back me up like always." I waited patiently as she ranted about rules and property values. Once she finally paused for breath, I handed her the manila envelope. "Actually, Karen," I said, "I don't think the board will be backing you up this time." Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Her face flushed pale, then blotchy red as her eyes darted over the cease and desist order, the state complaint, and the lawsuit. "This is absurd," she sputtered. "You can't prove." I smiled and gestured toward the crowd. "Actually, I can. And I'm not the only one." Tom stepped forward, holding his own folder. "Here's every payment I made, including the ones you claimed were late." Sarah joined him, phone in hand. "I've got recordings of the last 3 meetings, including the one where you threatened me over my daughter's sidewalk chalk." Karen's carefully curated empire crumbled as more neighbors came forward with their own evidence. The moving truck driver leaned against his rig, grinning. Even Mrs. Patterson set her knitting aside to enjoy the show. 3 days later, while unpacking boxes in my new home, I got a text from Mitchell. Karen had just been served a lawsuit at her workplace, a mortgage company, ironically enough. The following emergency HOA board meeting, according to Tom's giddy texts, was better than Netflix. An independent auditor was brought in. The results? Over $50,000 in suspicious fines, fabricated fees, and manipulated records uncovered under Karen's leadership. The board voted unanimously to remove her immediately. Karen, face flaming red, knocked over her chair as she stormed out. But the fallout didn't stop there. The State Real Estate Commission launched an investigation into her professional conduct. The district attorney opened a criminal case for fraud. Our civil lawsuit quickly became a class action joined by 7 other homeowners. The total damages exceeded $200,000. Karen's legal bills alone were enough to ruin her financially, and her mortgage license was now under review. The final twist? An email forwarded by Tom revealed that Karen had been secretly trying to buy my house through a shell company. She had been sabotaging my sale to drive the price down so she could flip it for profit. Her greed had been her undoing. As I settled into my new HOA-free neighborhood, I received one last update. Karen was convicted of fraud, sentenced to 2 years of probation, and ordered to complete 300 hours of community service. The judge, with perfect irony, assigned her to a nonprofit helping homeowners fight abusive HOAs. Karen stood in court, tears streaming down her face, as her kingdom of petty power crumbled to dust.